Morning all. I'd like to continue looking at past encounters of Anand and Kramnik. Here is a very curious encounter from the MTel Masters, played in 2005. Kramnik wasn't having a great tournament. He came bottom with Adams in this tournament and he lost actually 4 games in total. So this is one of his shorter losses. Anand, playing white, played e4. And Kramnik headed towards another solid defensive setup, not the Berlin system, but actually the Petrov. And this is another opening which has a very dull, boring, but solid reputation. So after knight takes e5, Kramnik played d6. So the knight retreats and black restores material equality. So white played now d4. And after d5, bishop d3. This is all standard stuff. Black now played knight c6 and white castled. Note, by the way, if you're going to play this as white, c4 is not very good here. You should really castle first. I've played this in a correspondence game and it was very dire out of the opening. I'll quickly show you. Bishop b4 check is very dangerous here because of knight d2 and now bishop f5. And it's already difficult for white because, you know, if you play castles now, then knight takes d2. And you've got this tactical liability, so you end up losing the exchange, for example, which is very unpleasant. So that's why you need to castle here and not play the move c4. So castles was played, and now Kramnik played bishop e7. So Anand now plays c4, and black pounces in now with knight b4. This is all theory. So bishop e2, castles, and now white plays knight c3. One of the ideas for white in this system, I've seen some games, for example, of Nigel Short, where the b file is used. So after black takes on c3, as we're going to see, after this a3, black is encouraged to take on c3 to relieve this pressure on the d5 pawn. So knight takes c3, b takes, the knight moves back, and, you know, white can sometimes use the b file. In this game, actually, white played rook e1 now, and after rook e8, and then took on d5. So after queen takes d5, it seems, if we look at this position, black potentially has got a positional plan of coming into that c4 square. So white potentially has these pawns which are both a strength and a liability, in that, you know, if they can be blockaded, it's not going to be very pleasant for white. But on the other hand, you know, Kasparov has proven that there's dynamic potential in these pawns. He had a very nice win beating Adams in this system, where, you know, this C and D pawn created a passed pawn later. So bishop f4 is actually an important move in this system, pressurizing that c7 pawn. And Kramnik played in this tournament rook ac8 twice in this tournament. So also against Michael Adams, which is another game he lost, but that was a much longer game than this one. So what happened here which was so disastrous? White played the interesting move queen c1. In the Adams-Kramnik game of the same tournament, bishop g3 was played. So queen c1 has some venom behind it. It supports that bishop on f4, so there's less of a tactical vulnerability. It helps prepare c4. For example, if knight a5, then c4. So it's got a couple of ideas at least. Also, you know, maybe the queen is useful supporting that a3 pawn in some lines. So here, Kramnik actually played knight a5. So that's that positional plan, which was mentioned earlier. Now c4 was played to stop any blockade there. And here is a critical blunder. Black should really play a move, a solid move, not venturing into dangerous tactical territory by allowing the queen to be exposed. For example, queen d8 is a Rybka recommendation. And white would have, though, a slight advantage. So, for example, queen c3, and now c5 is possible, but it wouldn't be as bad as the game. In the game, Kramnik decided to play queen e4. Perhaps he was slightly unwell during this tournament. He did lose a lot more games than he would. It wasn't that many games he played overall. And the ordinary looking move here would be just to attack the queen with bishop f1, for example. In which case queen c2, and black's going to be fine. You know, slight advantage to white maybe. So like rook a2 is actually technically better according to Ribik here, but either rook c1 or rook a2, and white has a slight advantage. Now in the game though, there's a much stronger move than bishop f1. I'll give you 5 seconds to see if you can spot it, and give yourself a lot more bonus points if you see the actual idea behind the move, if you can follow up the idea. So 5 seconds starting from now, or stop the video and come back to it in a bit. Okay, Anand sees something special in this otherwise ordinary looking, safe and solid Petrov defence. He plays the bishop to d1. So the bishop coming to d1 is slightly different. It's protecting that c2 square, so there's no queen c2 from black. And can the queen actually retreat back now? Or does it have to go to d3? Well, in the game queen d3 was played, but let's quickly look at queen c6. So queen c6, there's the same tactical idea as in the game. I'll give you actually another 5 seconds to see if you can spot it. So there's a very good move for white here. Okay, the move here, which is the same theme as the game, is rook e5. So these two tactical vulnerabilities are being embarrassed. So this does happen even in Grandmaster chess, where if there's tactical vulnerabilities, there's the potential for a tactical disaster, especially if one of the GMs is not feeling that well during the tournament. After all, Grandmasters are still human. So here, you know, if black takes, it's just losing the bishop, and there's no compensation move here, and there's nothing much better here. So basically, in the game actually, queen d3 was played, and we arrive at the same kind of idea now, with white transposing into that. So how does white forcefully get the same kind of theme? So you want to create these two tactical vulnerabilities. So what would be your first move here to reach the tactical idea we just saw? I'll give you another 5 seconds starting from now. Okay, the move is rook e3. So after queen takes c4, now we have rook e5. So both pieces unprotected. So rook e3, making sure that the queen is no longer protecting that bishop on f5. And the black queen can't really go anywhere else. If knight b3, then just bishop takes b3. So after queen d3, rook e3, just sacrificing that c4 pawn. So queen takes c4, and now rook e5, 1-0. One of the shortest encounters between these two. So there's no counter-attack move. So that was a pretty disastrous loss in the MTel Masters of 2005. Let's have a quick overview and summary again. So it was a Petrov disaster, probably the highest profile disaster in this otherwise solid opening. So after d5, bishop d3, knight c6. So if you're playing this line with white now, don't play c4 immediately, whatever you do, because of bishop b4 check. Castle. And now the c4 plan is very interesting. So you're going to be pressurizing that d5 pawn and allowing this bishop retreat. So knight c3 now. So bishop f5. So it seems as though black's incredibly solid. You know, it's usually not a tactical disaster. So, but whenever there's tactical vulnerabilities, you know, as humans, you know, we're not computers, so we can't calculate all the time. So it's an instinctive thing to just try and intuitively minimize the tactical vulnerabilities. So here there's an unprotected bishop on f5, which in itself is harmless. It's when there becomes two of them that it starts to be a little bit dangerous. So you need to be more on your toes. So after bishop f4, rook ac8, now queen c1. So black now played knight a5. So now we have potentially two tactically vulnerable pieces. So white played c4. So white found a way to make sure that these tactical vulnerabilities were exploitable by this this pawn sacrifice. So after queen d3, rook e3, just sacrificing that c4 pawn. So queen takes c4, and now rook e5, 1-0. One of the shortest encounters between these two. I hope you enjoyed this game, and please leave any comments on YouTube. Thanks very much.